We're live. Okay, good. Hello everyone, how are we doing? Another day, another stream. Hey Bretta, how's it going? Thank you for joining me. We've got a few cool news things to look at today. What's up, Tone? How's it going? Nice to see you. Thanks for joining. The big news that I want to go over is the Japanese government committing a load of money to new foods. I had a brief look at the article that I'm going to read. I haven't read it in full. And it looks like they are not including cultivated meat in there, but it does say that it includes some other animal-free food technologies. So it could be plant-based, it could be fermentation. We're going to have a look at that, but there's a lot of money going into some animal product alternatives from the Japanese government. We haven't really read or heard that much about Japan on the channel. But I know they do have some good stuff going on with cultivated meat as well there, which is, again, not included in this new deal, but there's a lot of animal-free foods in there, so we're going to get on it. Right. We're starting off with Fast Action Network. As always, we've got action.thehumaneleague.org. It's in the chat for you if you want to join me. And what are we doing here? This is one I have to write, so it's brain engaging a little bit. The Kroger company promised to go 100% cage free, but backtracked on that promise. Now aims to be 70% cage free by 2030. We have a 1-star Google review on the newly opened Kroger in Elizabethtown, Kentucky. Urged the company to keep its commitment to going 100% cage free. All right, let's go. Ooh, look, it's got 13 reviews so far, and most of them are 5-star reviews. And it's so new that on Google Maps, it's still a building site. It's marked on there, but the actual satellite image is just still a building site. Hey, Savvy Coops, how's it going? Nice to see you. So, let's get into them. What happened to Kroger's commitment to go 100% cage free by 2025? Shocking that you have abandoned this. Nice. Right, we'll do a few of these before we get into the news. I'm on 664 points currently. Let's go to, let's say 675, hey. Any local sentient weapon. Nice name. Veganism as a cover-up for socialism. Don't know about that one. Don't know about that one, Chief. Facebook comments. You don't get any points for the Facebook comments, but you know. The points are just the proxy. So we still do them. We're going to 675 on here, and then we're going to get into some news. And there's some cool things to get into. There's an article in Scientific American about this alpha-gal syndrome and the Lone Star tick, which I've made a video about before. That was about a year ago when all the headlines said, you know, this is kicking off. Look, there's the king. Beats me to it again. Look at this guy. This guy's socialist. Who, me? LS Dubs? No, not I. Not I, said the walrus. Negative Google review for bakers in Omaha, Nebraska. Oh look, it gives me the text this time. Write a review, here we go. 1 star. Get wrecked. It's nice when they have quite a high star rating to start out with. They've got a 4.1, the other one had a 3.8. A Japanese pharmaceutical board diet. Did I say that, Alicia? I don't know about that one. Right, we've got a contact form. We're going, what did I say, 675? So we got about 6 more points to get. Yeah. Okay, all right. Get rid of this, put this back here. Nice, right, let's do it. Who are we doing now? Magnum. This is another Unilever thing, I think. So we'll fill this out. I do these ones on a different screen so I don't dox my address and everything like that. We've also got a nice article on Plant-Based News about a new paper finding that vegans are more attractive. Was that ever in doubt? Was it ever in doubt? I don't know. I don't think so. We already know, of course, that vegans are more intelligent and live longer. But it turns out we're more attractive as well. We're just better all around, really. LinkedIn, we love a LinkedIn. Let's go. Right, we're up to 671, so 4 more points and we'll kick on. Nice. Get rid of that. Up to 672. I hope you guys are joining me on action.thehumaneleague.org. As we've seen, I sometimes slip on this, so you know, it's very feasible to overtake me on the points here. I'd like to know what Tristan King's on in terms of Fast Action Network points. That guy must be balling. Interesting, Licia. Yeah, let me know if that's worth having a look at. That's kind of a weird acquisition, isn't it? It doesn't really seem like a natural fit. But we might also read that thing about alt protein acquisitions today, so maybe there's something about it in there. That was quite recent. This one's Facebook, and I have to write my own comment. This is asking a lot. Based. Of course, yesterday we had a look on the Fornalytics Lens, Fornalytics' new AI tool for reading animal advocacy research. And we got the kind of major arguments for and against cage-free systems. My read is that that does come out in favor of cage-free systems. It's certainly not a slam dunk. There are some welfare measures that actually get worse. But overall, you know, sort of a weighted sum. The cage-free does represent progress. And of course, and you know, careful who you say this to. It's going to drive up the price of farming animals as well. Looks like the last one we have... Looks like this might actually be the last one. So we are on 675. I'm going to do the last one anyways, just because it's the last one now. So let's take this over here. Another Magnum one. Let's go. I do like thinking about all of these companies kind of getting inundated. Presumably these contact forms for Magnum and other random like consumer brands don't get a lot of play. I would guess. Don't get much contact. But suddenly they get overwhelmed by animal advocates, which is very cool to think about. Right, there we go. Are we done here? I think we've completed it, apart from the phone calls and the postcards. Nice. We're back. True, Alicia, true. Damn, that sounds good, Jeremy. Got to counteract all the healthy stuff. Yeah, true. All right. Let's start with Japan. There's some good news. Yesterday we did a couple more Doomer things. Well, not so much Doomer, but bad news. But we're back on the hopium today. We've got a big investment from the Japanese government. $6.2 billion investment in new foods in 2040 roadmap. Let's go. Japan's government has laid out a draft public-private investment roadmap across 17 sectors for 2040, totaling $2.3 trillion. As part of this, is targeting $6.2 billion in funding for novel food technologies. Jesus, this is a mental amount of money. $6.2 billion for novel foods. I just want to put this in perspective a little bit, because yesterday I was getting quite irate about the UK government putting $2 million, or giving $2 million of taxpayers' money to pig farms in Scotland. And that is bad, there's no doubt about it. But let's put it in perspective. This is like 3,000 times more money that Japan is now going to be investing in novel foods. Or it's, you know, between 2,000 and 3,000. This is dollars, that was pounds. But it's massively more, right? So you should be between 2,000 and 3,000 times as happy about this as you were pissed off about the news yesterday. Or some fraction of that. We'll see how much is going to meat-free stuff. Let's see. Japan's taken a big step in its bid to carve out a dominant space in the future food sector. The country's government has released a draft public-private investment roadmap projecting cumulative financing of 370 trillion yen, $2.29 trillion, across 17 strategic sectors until 2040. Of these areas, 4 are related to food tech, accounting for a total of 9.7 trillion yen, $60 billion in investment, with 1 trillion yen, $6.2 billion, allocated to new foods. It's the result of the Food Tech Working Group established last December, through which the government has been holding discussions with industry experts about the investment plan. As a result, we've been able to solidify this public and private investment roadmap at this stage, said Norikazu Suzuki, Japan's agriculture minister. What is important now is to make this roadmap a reality rather than letting it remain just a pipe dream. Well, you know, one thing I'm noticing there straight away, whenever we hear from agriculture ministers, it's normally bad news. I've spoken before about how different government departments have their own priorities and they often conflict with each other. In the food tech sector, we're usually getting the good news from Department of Science and Technology, or sometimes like public infrastructure departments. But generally, a lot of agriculture departments, a lot of agriculture ministers seem to see their jobs as defending livestock farming. That's my perspective. That's my take. A lot of times, you'll see the government's climate change department, for example, issuing some advice to cut back on meat or making some investments in meat alternatives or something like this. And it's usually the agriculture ministers, the agriculture departments, who are opposed to that, often publicly, even within the same government. So this strikes me as good news that this is coming from the agriculture minister in Japan. The country wants to become the most advanced bioeconomy society by 2030 and has previously announced an $8 billion fund to support biomanufacturing before identifying food tech as a priority growth sector. Let's go. According to the draft document, the new foods vertical includes animal-free proteins and functional nutrition products, with the government keen on leveraging the country's strengths in fermentation, seasoning technologies, rice flour products, and marine ingredients. Okay, so fermentation, this seems like it's going to be the animal-free stuff here. Seasoning technologies, rice flour products, and marine ingredients. Depending on what the marine ingredients are, that could also be animal alternatives. Let's see. Japan plans to initially target health and climate-conscious consumers in Europe and the US with these future foods, before expanding into Asia. It aims to reach 3 trillion yen in sales for new foods across domestic and international markets by 2040. Okay, interesting. So they're seeing this as an export opportunity primarily. Japan, by the way, is one of the countries with the lowest rates of veganism in the world. People may have had experience in traveling to Japan. I've heard that it's very, very difficult to avoid fish there. There's kind of fish powder in everything. And it also has very low rates of veganism and familiarity with veganism as well. This was from a study that we did about veganism around the world. And Japan is really lagging behind a lot of Western countries in terms of veganism. But this looks like a progressive mood, so this is good. Before the draft was published, the Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries held a tasting event for food tech products from ministers and officials from various embassies, with an eye to boosting demand for these innovations. Wow, okay, so this is very proactive from the Agriculture Department in Japan. Good for them. While the government's new food vertical does not include cultivated meat, the country has been advancing its efforts to produce locally produced cell-cultured products to market. To bring locally produced cell-cultured products to market. The government and industry stakeholders, including the Consumer Affairs Agency's Subcommittee on Newly Developed Foods and the Japan Association for Cellular Agriculture, are working to establish a regulatory framework for the approval of cultivated meat. Aside from the funding roadmap, the Food Tech Public-Private Council launched 2 new working groups focused on freshness preservation technologies and fermentation-derived foods. Okay. So they've got a lot of stuff going on for cellular agriculture and cultivated meat outside of this particular announcement. This doesn't include cultivated meat in this new funding announced. They do have a lot of other stuff going on there, though. And then they've also launched 2 new working groups, and one of them is on fermentation foods. So that sounds like animal product alternatives as well. The latter's goal, so there's the fermentation working group, is to enable widespread adoption of fermented food ingredients using koji and mushroom mycelium through the discussion of topics like labeling, safety, and consumer understanding. Investment in food tech requires a multifaceted evaluation. This is the Prime Minister's office in Japan, or courtesy Prime Minister's office in Japan, I guess. What an inefficient use of space here. They could have people dancing in the middle of this, couldn't they? That'd be useful. The new foods vertical has the smallest investment total in Japan's food tech investment roadmap. The largest is indoor farming, which has been allocated 4.6 I'm guessing this should have 1 trillion yen, $28.4 billion. Okay. Alert, alert. That sounds like it could be bad news if it's talking about livestock. Here, the government has outlined a policy to expand the range of commercially cultivated crops beyond just leafy vegetables and roll out a system that marries crops, production equipment, conservation data, and operational know-how in response to market demand. Okay, so maybe this is more like vertical farming, crop farming, it sounds like. Another pillar relates to food machinery, which is set to receive 1.2 trillion yen, $7.4 billion, to help Japan expand its overseas presence through measures that support compliance with international regulations, the establishment of global standards led by Japan, and the acquisition of certifications required for exports. Freshness preservation is viewed as a catalyst technology for expanding food and fresh produce exports, with a target of 3 trillion yen in sales by 2040. The fourth food tech sector earmarked for funding is land-based aquaculture. Uh-oh. Okay, that's probably not good. Although, is it algae instead of fish? The government's allocated 2.9 trillion yen, $17.9 billion, for the development of modular systems, as well as the development of feed via algal fermentation and genome-related technologies. Okay, interesting. So there's a couple of things in here that are a bit concerning potentially with the vertical farming stuff, or indoor farming as they're calling it, and land-based aquaculture. Both of those would kind of set alarm bells for me, but it sounds from the context like they are going to be plant-based and algae-based, respectively. So, and this does mention animal alternatives as well. So perhaps this is good news. When it comes to investment targets, we believe it's crucial to invest strategically. This requires a multifaceted evaluation that includes not only technological capabilities, but also management strength, whether or not they have an international focus, and their personal network, said Suzuki. We'll continue to consider how to select which companies to support and which technologies to strongly promote, he added. Okay, well, I mean, this sounds like good news on net from Japan. They're investing a ton of money in a bunch of different food technologies, including animal-free proteins, to 2040. They're doing this in a public-private partnership, so this will be like subsidized investments for the private sector, basically. And they're also targeting mainly exports to the US and Europe. So that means we might see some of these funky, futuristic Japanese alternative proteins potentially before Japanese consumers. So pretty good news. The latest government to invest in alternative proteins for the future. And there's more and more of these. There's been investments from a bunch of governments in alt protein development at this stage. I'm pleased to say the UK does pretty well on this metric. We're, I think, one of the best in Europe in terms of investment in alternative protein production. But we're certainly not alone. There's been money going into this from Denmark and from other governments as well. But Japan, the latest to add to the list, and a big sum as well. This is a lot of money. So we're pleased to see it. We love to see it. Let's have a look then. What's going on with this Daiya thing? I see Alicia's sent a ton of messages. Oh, looks like you're copying from an article, hey? Otsuka could help Daiya scale internationally. The stated plan was to leverage Otsuka's R&D, manufacturing, consumer brand expertise, capital, and distribution to take Daiya further across North America, Europe, and Asia. Daiya's leadership wanted to lead a larger partner. Daiya's CEO said the company needed more than funding. also intellectual capital, experience, and global expansion capacity to pursue a much bigger role in plant-based foods. So in plain terms, Otsuka saw a fast-growing, already successful health-oriented brand as a way to diversify beyond drugs and supplements. Daiya saw Otsuka as the capital and distribution partner needed to expand globally. The official sources frame it as a strategic health and growth deal, not an animal testing-related decision. Nice. Okay, yes, that is of interest, Alicia. I appreciate that. And that sounds like good news as well, basically. That's actually a good segue for going into this alt protein mergers piece, which we didn't get to yesterday, but seems like pretty important news. Or I guess this isn't news as such, but it's analysis on consolidation in the alternative proteins industry. This is something we've seen in the last couple of years, more companies being acquired or merging or otherwise kind of joining in the alt protein sector. This has happened in several plant-based brands. Several cultivated meat companies have been acquired by others or merged together. And I generally see that as pretty good news because it represents joining of different technologies or expertises or competencies for all these companies. It may enable them to unlock more economies of scale so that they can produce more food more cheaply. And it also kind of cross-pollinates all of the different technologies that have been developed in these smaller alt protein companies. So let's have a look at it. This is the deep dive from Green Queen, published July 9th, so about a week ago. Let's see. More than 80 alternative protein startups have experienced M&As, insolvency, or closures over the last 2 years, and investors and founders don't expect this consolidation trend to stop. I think the next generation of food companies will be built through collaboration, says Denise Fikikigloyo. That is definitely not how that's pronounced. Let's try that again. Denise Fikikoglu. Probably still missing on that, to be honest, but I'm sure that name's going to come up a lot in this article, so we'll have time to practice. She's the co-founder of Better Fish, an alternative seafood startup that was acquired by US firm Bayou Best Foods in June. That was among a plethora of consolidation deals that have shaped the future food industry over the last couple of years. Analysis by Green Queen finds that since September 2024, at least 82 alternative protein businesses have been bought out or acquired, merged, fallen into some form of insolvency, or shut down. In fact, consolidation has really ramped up in the last year. 54 of these instances have occurred in the last 12 months, representing a 35% increase from the September 2024 to 25 period. For Fikikoglu, the timing of this surge makes sense. Investment into food and alternative proteins slowed significantly around 2023. Most startups had between 18 and 24 months of runway, so we're seeing the consequences now, she explains. Companies that couldn't reach profitability, adapt their business model, raise additional capital, or find the right strategic partner are facing difficult decisions. So it seems like we're kind of talking about two categories of things going on here. Mergers and acquisitions I don't consider to be bad news. In fact, I think it's probably on balance going to be good news. Because as I say, it represents the joining together of technologies, competencies, right? That's probably going to be a good thing for both companies involved. Insolvency and shutting down and not being able to find a partner, obviously, that's bad news for those companies. That said, as I mentioned yesterday, that is kind of part of the game here, and not that unexpected in an industry where you have a bunch of different companies popping up in a short space of time. It's fully expected that there will be an intense period of competition, and many of those companies will fall by the wayside. Obviously, alternative proteins compared to other industries is very new, or it's large as of only very recently, right? It's really only the last kind of 6-7 years that there's really been a big increase in alt protein companies, and now we're kind of seeing that competition coming to a peak. It's a view shared by investors active in the space, including Yoni Glickman, managing partner at Peak Bridge, whose portfolio includes startups like Vow, Rival Foods, Imagine Dairy, and Standing Ovation. Many of these companies raised in 2021 and 2022 and have reached the end of their runway. Investors are more interested in companies that have proven product market fit and traction, as opposed to investing in an alternative protein vision that was overhyped over those years, he says. Yeah, so this goes for consumers and also goes for investors. You're going to double down on those which are successful and not on those which aren't, right? So it's now reaching the stage. We had this kind of early bet stage where a lot of companies were getting funded. We've since had a few more years seeing how those products play out in the market, seeing how those companies play out in terms of their technology and research. And now we're seeing more consolidation of investment and also market activity towards those more successful firms. Something like Fijagiolu, I think. All right, I'll try that, Jeremy. I appreciate you. Oh, it's Turkish, silent G. Okay, good to know. Fijagiolu. All right. I'll do it next time if it comes back around. I'm sure it will. Christian Nagel, co-founder and partner at Earlybird, an investor in Perima, concurs. The sector is moving from a capital-abundant phase to one defined by execution and economics. Many companies were funded on expectations of rapid category adoption, but consumer demand, manufacturing scale, and margins have taken longer to materialize. Higher interest rates and shifting investor focus drive consolidation. So here we go. We've got this big list here. Every major alternative company closure, merger, acquisition, or liquidation event from September 2024 to July 9th, 2026. And there we go. We've got 82 of them listed here. That's a pretty handy resource. I can imagine this being a good basis for some kind of research project. Well, I guess we're going to get various visualizations and stuff from this data in the article here. Of the 54 deals announced since July 2025, nearly 2/3 have involved acquisitions, while the rest have seen companies enter insolvency, discontinue alternative protein brands, or cease operations altogether. Okay, well that is good. I just said that it's basically good news when there's a merger or acquisition, and it's basically bad news, at least for the company, when there's insolvency or ceasing operations. And actually 2/3 are in that good news category, so that's something. For Steve Simitzes, founder and managing partner of Replicator VC, you can track this back to when the US Federal Reserve began increasing interest rates. He views the collapse of Silicon Valley Bank and First Republic as the turning point away from the previous cycle. If we take 2023-24 as the beginning of the funding drought, many of these companies still have cash in the bank from their previous raise, and others raised bridges or found a way to run on fumes, for example with layoffs and hard pivots, he says. At some point the money just runs out. If the typical startup round is capital for 18 to 24 months, plus a bridge for 12 to 18 months, that puts us at about 2025-26 for the big crash out. Okay, that's interesting. So there's kind of a typical period of financing then. The investment rounds, I guess, target 18 to 24 months plus 12 to 18 months of finance. And therefore, it's kind of expected that about the 3-year mark, where we are now, 3 years on from the biggest investment coming into the industry, is going to be where we start to see some of those companies coming to the end of that capital run. And if they haven't reached profitability in that time, then it's goodbye. Now, it's very possible that some of those companies could have got there with a bit more runway. And certainly there will have been attempts to raise a bit more money to extend that. But you don't know, right? You don't know. The investors don't know. The companies don't necessarily know. a lot of times this is the environment, right? You're betting on which technologies are going to be successful and scalable, which technologies are going to appeal to consumers in the market. All of these are kind of unknowns, right? That's the point of investing. You're kind of betting on what's going to be successful. And they're also saying it's related to the Fed raising interest rates in 2024, which is going to be, making investment less feasible, basically. Or more expensive, I should say. Nagel agrees that higher interest rates and more selective funding environment have accelerated a necessary market correction, separating businesses with differentiated technology and commercial traction from those that relied primarily on growth narratives. Yeah, so which of these can actually do the business is kind of being revealed now as the ones that haven't managed that get shaken out. Among the companies that have doubled down on M&As as a growth strategy is the Live Kindly Collective, the owner of leading brands such as Oomph, Fries, and Like. Oomph is wicked, by the way. Anyone had Oomph? I think it's a Swedish brand. And I think it was one of those pictured up here, yeah. Oomph pulled BBQ chunks. You used to be able to get this in Asda. I'm not sure if this is still in the UK. But that's a really, really good meat alternative. That's like one of the best ones I've had, I would say, Oomph. The firm recorded its first profitable month last year and acquired Germany's Greenforce earlier this month. So it might not be that obvious, like what's going on when we hear about firms like first reaching profitability. Maybe you're thinking, is that aren't they supposed to be profitable? But oftentimes with these like technology-based startups, it's investor money that is paying the bills while they develop products, work out if they can become profitable. So I think we read the other day about Chunk Food expecting its first profitable year as well. So that's when the business is actually generating more revenue than it has expenses, is going to actually turn a profit rather than just spending investors' money, which obviously is not sustainable. And that is, we're starting to see that now with more and more plant-based companies especially. So that is suggesting that some of these are becoming more sustainable businesses and they're going to be able to attract more investment in the long term if they get to that stage. Because then you'll actually see a return on that investment, right? It's less speculative. It's more just like investing in a profitable business. You know you're going to see a return. The company sees this as a sign of a maturing industry. Yeah. Over the past decade, significant investment drove innovation and the launch of many new businesses. While that accelerated category development, it also created a highly fragmented marketplace, explained CEO David Suarez. Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it. And that's what I have been talking about. Like, it's kind of expected for a new rapidly growing area that a ton of new businesses are going to pop up. A ton of existing businesses are going to see if they can get a piece of the action by like diversifying into what proteins. And many of them will fail. That is just expected in an industry following this kind of trajectory. So this is not necessarily damning news. It was never going to be possible for all of the companies popping up in 2022, 23 to sustain. It was always going to be a period of market competition, seeing who could do the business, and then, right, we're going to come out with the best companies after that period. Today's environment is different. Investors are focused on sustainable growth, profitability, and operational discipline. At the same time, retailers are looking for partners that can deliver scale, reliability, and category expertise. As industries mature, consolidation is a natural outcome as stronger business models emerge and companies seek greater scale and efficiency, he adds. Yeah, this is... that's how smoothly I would have said that had I been the CEO of an investment fund. I'm saying the same sort of thing, right? Less eloquently. For us, M&A is not about getting bigger for the sake of it. It's about building stronger businesses with the scale, capabilities, and efficiencies needed to serve consumers and retail partners more effectively. Consolidation enables companies to combine complementary strengths, invest more effectively in innovation and operations, and create more sustainable businesses for the long term. Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think the mergers and acquisitions that are going on now, or have been going on in the last couple of years, are going to result in stronger companies in the long term. It's going to be good for the alt protein sector. We're going to see more resilient, profitable, efficient businesses. Which, by the way, even now in the last couple of years, where we've been seeing alt protein, plant-based products getting cheaper than meat, this is like before all of these efficiencies from these mergers and acquisitions are coming into effect. So this has mainly been driven by meat getting more expensive at a faster rate than plant-based products. But with all of this consolidation going on, it's very much expected that that's going to enable the companies to bring down the price of their products further. So I think we're really going to see the price advantage for alt proteins over animal products heating up in the near future. We're already there in many cases. I think we're going to see that continuing. I really do think we're at the beginning of the end for a lot of the livestock sector. Once there's a consistent, clear, and sizable cost advantage for choosing alt proteins over animal products, I think the problem largely solves itself. Now, we're still going to need the push factors. We're still going to need to be making the case for moving away from animal products. Things like Project Slingshot, for example, which are making the case for moving away from pigs and now from chickens. But better and cheaper alternatives, which is going to be the result of all of these mergers that we're reading about, are going to make that transition much smoother as well. To put the funding issues into perspective, it's worth noting that overall investment in the alternative protein industry totaled just $881 million in 2025, falling below the $1 billion mark for the first time since 2018. Fermentation companies experienced a 43.5% decline, while cultivated meat startups collectively raised more in 2021 than in the following 4 years combined. Plant-based firms, meanwhile, saw a 31.5% increase from the 2024 total, but only because of Beyond Meat's $100 million debt financing round, without which this sum would only have increased by 2%. Okay, well this is this little tick up here between 2024 and 25. I say little tick up, like on the grand scheme of this axis here, but yeah, this is 31.5% increase from 2024 to 25. And even without this 100 million Beyond Meat deal, it would have been a 2% increase as well. So in terms of investment in plant-based, it looks like we've hit the bottom and we're on the way back up. So again, I think this is reasons to think we're going in the right direction. At the beginning of the decade, generalist VCs entered the space with unreasonable expectations around time horizons and exit scenarios. Similarly, the alternative protein bubble has largely burst due to both changes in consumer sentiment and overly hyped startups that were focused on a vision rather than a proven product market fit, says Glickman. The founders we spoke to agree that investors have become more selective. They're prioritizing strong fundamentals like profitability, cash generation, efficient operations, and a clear path to sustainable growth, according to Suarez. For plant-based food companies, the conversation has shifted from potential to execution. Investors want to see strong brands, differentiated products, consumer demand, and disciplined business performance, he says. So again, I just want to hit it home that this is very much expected in a growing technological sector. There was, of course, the dot-com bubble, and following a period where investment there went massively down and a lot of the company valuations went massively down. That didn't mean that the internet was a bad idea, right? A lot of people say we're probably in an AI bubble at the moment in terms of investment, but that doesn't mean that AI is a bad idea. The technology, even if individual companies, get unreasonably high valuations and then have corrections, the underlying technology is the future. I think that's the case for AI. I think it's the case for alternative proteins as well. For plant-based food companies, the conversation has shifted from potential to execution. Do we already read this? Investors want to see strong brand, differentiated products, consumer demand, and disciplined business performance, he says. Here we go. Let's see. Let's see Jeremy's pronunciation guide for this. Fijoglio feels the industry was too focused on trends and consumer hype and not enough on solving real problems and building healthy businesses. To her, the shift in investor mindset is a positive development, as it could push founders to build businesses that consumers genuinely need, not just those that fit the current investment climate. We'll see a different type of investor in food tech going forward. Investors who understand the industry, think long-term, and want to build sustainable businesses rather than chase the next hype cycle, she says. The AI problem and how alternative protein can win back investors. It's the sum of venture capital investment overall and for AI-related venture capital investment. Okay, so AI is like more than half the total in 2025. A lot of technological sectors are saying this. Like, if it's not an AI thing, that's where kind of all of the hype is for investment at the moment. So all the capital is kind of going there and makes it a little bit difficult for other industries. That said, this is informative because this is all venture capital investment. And it massively peaked in 2021, and then all venture capital investment has gone down, down, down since then, and now just back up last year for the first time. So if we look at this graph with the alt protein investments, it's following a pretty similar picture, right? Look at plant-based investments here. We've got up, 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 peak in 2021, COVID, down, 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 slight recovery then in 2025. You could look at this and go, okay, alt protein investments really fallen off. Like, this is bad news for alternative proteins per se. But then when you look at this, that's actually just the shape of the investment landscape more broadly. All venture capital investment went down between 2021 and 2022 by, what's this, like 30%? And then again to 2023 and down again to 24. So this looks kind of damning for alt proteins, but then if you look at all investment, okay, it's actually a much broader story. So this is not a story of nobody wants to invest in alt protein anymore. This is a story of all venture capital investments really fell off after 2021 with COVID. Investors point out that capital has become much more disciplined across the VC landscape, not just food tech. PitchBook's analysis shows that as of Q1 2026, VC fundraising in the US has fallen by 70% from its 2022 peak. Investors are now more aware of the long time horizons and capital intensity of synthetic biology. The companies that are fundraising successfully are those that have largely proven that they can scale in capex-like scenarios and have attractive unit economics and regulatory approvals, says Peak Bridges Glickman. Nagel reiterates that investors today want clear technical differentiation, defensible IP, capital efficiency, and a credible path to profitability. In that context, artificial intelligence has become the darling of the VC world, with firms in this space capturing 61% of global venture funding last year. Yeah, this is the AI sucking up all of the investment lately. Many people are saying this. So it's very, in a sense, reassuring that this is not an alt protein specific issue. There's been a tightening of investment really across the board since 2021. This is something that future food firms can use to their advantage. AI is the unlock for alternative protein, period. You can develop better and cheaper products faster. This reduces burn and gets these companies commercial ready with less capital than the previous wave, says Smitzes. You know, I might make a video about the impacts of AI for animals. I have a few ideas about how that's happening, and AI accelerated alt protein development is certainly one of them. I think there's also an interesting thing about democratization of knowledge and understanding. It's like the internet democratized information, but most people can't still interpret most of that information. But as AI gets better and better, you can reach an understanding of anything in discourse with a sufficiently intelligent AI. And so I think it's going to get harder for propagandists, basically. Like if you're the meat industry and you're putting out a bunch of propaganda about regenerative agriculture, say, and regenerative agriculture is really great, regenerative agriculture has all these benefits, grazing cows can be good for the environment. These might all be true statements, but are deliberately made in a context that suggests there's no need to reduce our meat consumption when that really isn't the case. Now, traditional Google search is not going to be able to tell you that, but an AI conversation is. So I think in a few years' time, when people are very much used to AI and when AI is more able to reliably process information like this, it's going to make it very difficult for propaganda to survive contact. And I think that's going to be a really, really good thing in a bunch of areas, and meat reduction is one of them. I persuaded a friend of mine away from eating red meat, or eating loads of red meat. He'd kind of fallen into the steaks on wooden chopping boards algorithm, as he put it, into this kind of suggestion that red meat is actually a health food algorithm. And I said to him, you should go and ask ChatGPT about this. And he did, and he said, wow, it turns out that's bollocks, and seed oils are fine. I was like, yeah. So you can get to an understanding of these things, which people might never otherwise reach. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about the impacts of AI for animals overall. Of course, there's also some bad uses, and we watched that video about AI and animals on stream. But yeah, on the whole, my feeling is that it's going to be a good thing. Technology such as AI can certainly help improve areas such as forecasting, product development, and operational efficiency, notes Live Kindly Collective's Suarez. However, investors ultimately back businesses that deliver value to consumers and can create long-term sustainable returns. Technology can be a powerful enabler, but is not a substitute for a strong business model. Along those lines, Nagel believes that just because AI attracts significant capital doesn't mean other categories are uninvestable. Companies will continue to attract funding if they solve meaningful problems with proprietary technology and can show strong unit economics. The bar has simply become much higher. Done anything on Mr. Charlie's expansion? No, I haven't. This is an article on that, is it? Okay, nice. Well, let's have a look at that in a minute. I appreciate that. Thanks, Jeremy. If I click back home, is that gonna... Yeah, that's not what I wanted. Nice. Smitzes suggests that validating scalability is merely table stakes, proving consumer demand is the real key to attracting capital. Alternative protein startups need to identify a customer or segment, can be a B2B customer or a consumer market or government, etc., with a burning need for your product, he states. Not a sure it would be nice to meet our ESG targets someday, that customer is just being polite. Find a burning problem that your alt protein product or technology uniquely solves for a customer who has money to spend. To identify these burning needs, we can start by looking at the fundamentals. Food inflation is still hurting consumers. That's a broadly a good thing for oral proteins, as we've seen, right? GLP-1 is increasing demand for protein. I actually am not sure about that in an absolute sense. Is increasing... People on GLP-1s are advised to and want to have a higher percentage of protein. But from what I've seen, overall consumption is still going to go down. Right, that's the point of these drugs, they're appetite suppressants. So maybe a higher percentage of their diet is coming from meat or from protein, but it's not going to be higher volumes overall. And I've seen some research on this. I made a video about this. How many animals will Ozempic save? And yeah, from the research that I've seen, meat consumption absolute level does go down, even if it is a higher percentage of the calories still consumed. Developing nations are getting richer and demanding Western diets. Yep, this is the China story largely. And climate change is putting pressure on livestock. Yes, indeed. Despite a lot of the lobbying that we've seen, I mean, my feeling is governments and even the livestock lobby are not going to be able to run from the reality for too long. Right? We've already seen, for example, cattle herds in the US plummeting. And that's been driven by climate change-driven droughts. Things like that can't be lobbied away. I'm sorry, you guys are pumping out a ton of methane. You're increasing the global temperature, and that is going to lead to droughts. That is going to lead to herd collapse. Like, these things are going to happen. This is not just alarmism that's never going to come to be. We have not long to deal with climate change. Largely, we've already failed to deal with it, in my view. I think, we're seeing the effects of it more and more. And some of that is indeed putting pressure on livestock systems directly. We're going to see food prices continue to rise. That's going to mean animal products especially go up in price. I think it's going to be, I wish I could anticipate getting as much satisfaction from saying I told you so as I would from just the world making the needed changes. But yeah, I think that you can't lobby reality. Even whey, a waste stream, is expensive now. All of these pressures happening at once is almost definitely creating business problems for food producers that alternative protein startups can uniquely solve. Let's go. Are plant-based companies disproportionately affected by consolidation? Here's the Vegetarian Butcher. Of course, this was acquired by Unilever and then acquired again by JBS, combining it with the Vivera brand to form the Vegetarian Butcher Collective. Okay. So yeah, this is one that's been acquired twice in recent years. Plant-based food is the category most impacted by the consolidation craze, accounting for 72% of the M&A deals, insolvencies and closures since July 2025. In contrast, cultivated protein and fermentation-focused firms only accounted for 15 and 11% of the deals respectively. There's a simple reason for this disparity. Plant-based is the most mature and commercially established segment, and it's home to far more companies than others. Yeah, there's just more plant-based companies than there are culture meat companies. Plant-based brands already have retail distribution, manufacturing infrastructure, consumer awareness, and established revenue streams, making them more attractive candidates for acquisitions and consolidation, says Suarez. Yeah, so as well as having more companies, we kind of know more about them as businesses. They're trading businesses as opposed to cultivated meat companies, which are largely pre-commercialization, right? So there's a bit more uncertainty with those. We have still seen some mergers and acquisitions in the cultivated meat sector, and again, I think that's a good thing. But yeah, no surprises that this is mainly in plant-based. Many cultivated meat and fermentation businesses remain at an earlier stage of commercial development with significant focus on technology, scale-up, production economics, and regulatory pathways. Nagel outlines how many plant-based businesses operate in crowded product categories with limited differentiation, which makes M&As and market exits more likely. He echoes Suarez by suggesting the key challenges for cell cultivation and fermentation firms relate to scalability and regulation, not consolidation. Still, Simitzis feels consolidation for the plant-based category is disproportionately higher, explaining as a difference in survival rates for startups with consumer models versus startups with B2B models. Interesting. Okay. So I guess this is saying that companies selling products directly to consumers basically are higher risk and can fall off or fail to have revenue materialize more easily than companies selling directly to other businesses as ingredients, for example. The consumer market turned hard against plant-based with the decline of Beyond Meat stock as the bellwether. Meanwhile, fermentation firms, especially in Europe, are finding traction as ingredient plays, selling into large food producers, he says. And an increasing number of cultivated players are finding their own B2B pivots into adjacent industries like biopharma and beauty. So I would chalk it up to different business models, and consumer business models were hardest hit by food inflation and the general Trump-inspired backlash against plant-based. Interesting. I wonder... Okay, that's talking about the US dietary guidelines. Yeah, I mean, debatable how much that's a symptom or a cause, right? Suarez suggests the plant-based category is moving from fragmentation towards scale. The next phase of growth will be led by fewer, stronger players that can invest in innovation, serve retailers more effectively, and create long-term value for consumers. Consolidation is not about reducing choice, it's about building sustainable businesses that can help grow the category for years to come. Consolidation is set to continue, as experts call it necessary and healthy. Oh look, this is Oomph. This is, I guess, Oomph Mints in the middle here. This is a lovely picture. The food tech experts we spoke to agree that consolidation in the alternative protein sector won't slow down anytime soon. After all, this sector has seen 7 acquisitions or liquidations since June, so just in the last month. We expect consolidation to continue over the coming years. Retail shelf space is finite, competition remains intense, and both retailers and consumers are increasingly looking for brands that can consistently deliver quality, innovation, and value. We believe the sector will continue to evolve towards fewer, stronger players that are capable of driving long-term category growth, says Suarez. Yeah, so this is really underlining my point that, like, largely this trend is a good thing for the sector. And that is kind of contra to the valence that you might pick up from headlines on this kind of activity, where it seems to be bad news oftentimes that companies are going out of business or companies are being acquired or merged. That's not necessarily the case. Sometimes that can be good news for the sector. This is leading to more robust businesses and better products in the long term. Right, we've got this name again. I'm going to scroll back up to JG's explanation of the enunciation. Fijagiolo, thank you, Jeremy, strikes an optimistic tone, suggesting that as the trend continues, we'll see a new generation of startups emerge. They'll be leaner, more focused, and built around solving real consumer problems from day one. That's good for entrepreneurs, good for investors, and ultimately good for consumers. She views consolidation as a necessary phase for the industry, arguing that it brings together complementary expertise, technologies, and market access to create stronger companies with a higher chance of long-term success. So yeah, again, kind of, not to belabor the point, but this trend is pretty good news. Glickman agrees, noting that many food tech startups have successfully developed innovative technologies or brands, but deployed their capital inefficiently. Through combinations, overhead and OPEX costs can be deployed more effectively. Through combinations, overhead and OPEX costs can be deployed more effectively, giving both founders and investors better outcomes. Investors who successfully deploy roll-up and integration strategies will be very interesting to watch. Both Nagel and Suarez call consolidation necessary and healthy. Most emerging industries go through a period of rapid expansion, followed by rationalization as scale becomes increasingly important. Consolidation can help create stronger businesses with the resources to invest in innovation, manufacturing capabilities, consumer engagement, and category development, says Suarez. I see consolidation as a healthy and necessary step in the maturation of the sector. Every emerging industry goes through a period in which too many companies pursue similar opportunities, and eventually the strongest technologies, teams, and business models emerge, outlines Nagel. I expect consolidation to continue over the next couple of years, although the pace will increasingly depend on improving financing conditions and consumer demand. Ultimately, a more focused ecosystem should create stronger companies capable of building lasting global businesses. We need change from the top and the bottom. Smithsis, hang on, what we got here? This is Better Fish. This looks like tuna sandwiches, plant-based tuna sandwiches. That looks pretty good. That is not a brand that I'm familiar with. That might be an American thing. Smithsis adopts more of a creative destruction is good view, noting that consolidation isn't good or bad or necessary, but makes for a nice press story. Ultimately, it's not press or social media that makes or breaks an industry. Besides, there are other paths for a failed company that continue to advance the space. Talent and IP can be rehomed, he says. Yeah, I actually published a paper this year about intellectual property in cultivated meat and like constructive, collaborative approaches to this. Obviously, from the business perspective and from an investor's perspective, you want your company to have proprietary technology that nobody else has access to, and that's going to be your competitive advantage. But from the industry's perspective, or from the advocate's perspective, kind of overall looking at the success of cultivated meat, that's not what you want. You actually want the best technology to be available broadly, and you want all companies to be able to use the best stuff, right? So you are now seeing more of these collaborations, like we were reading the other day about Purina and Vow Foods doing a collab on cultivated meat production. And then you're also seeing the other thing, even when some of these companies go out of business or pivot away from cultivated meat, for example, their technology and their patents will often get acquired by some other company that can make use of it. So it's not that that progress has been lost overall. It's not that that product is dead now. It comes up and it comes to benefit some other company. So it's like, even if there's not a merger or acquisition of the company, there can be redeployment of the technology, of the staff, of other resources, right? So that progress is not necessarily lost, even when you do see companies going out of business. There are still some companies operating in the zombie state, so there are probably a few more in the pipeline. But eventually we'll run out of companies that were forged in the days of free capital, and the pace of consolidation will naturally slow down. Fijicioglu strongly believes that companies come and go, but good ideas don't, arguing that many current innovations will return when markets, regulators, and consumers are ready for them. It underscores why she decided to sell her startup to Biobest Foods. Better Fish has built a strong brand, unique products, and a recognized position in both the plant-based seafood category and the European seaweed ecosystem. When we met Bio, we initially explored a collaboration, but it quickly became clear that we could achieve much more together, she says. Bio brings deep expertise in the US food service market, manufacturing, and commercial execution. Better Fish brings European seaweed expertise, proprietary processing know-how, a strong consumer brand, and experience developing both ingredients and finished products. This will enable them to create a stronger platform with a broader product portfolio, expertise in 2 key markets, and a shared vision of where food needs to go. Startups can push the boundaries, but transforming our food system also requires leadership from governments, industry, and retailers, she says. We need change from the top as well as from the bottom. Well, there you go. That is the wave of mergers and acquisitions in alternative proteins, and especially in plant-based proteins, in the last couple of years. We've seen a lot of them, 82 in total, most of those in the last year and most of those in plant-based companies. And largely this is a good thing. It represents companies' technology, staff, expertise, infrastructure, etc., all coming together and being able to actually combine all of that and make better and cheaper products and ultimately more profitable and sustainable businesses. So there you go. That was a good read. I enjoyed that. And this is good. This looks like a nice little data set. I'm sure that they're probably going to have a more detailed version of this. This is just a share, right? But yeah, this is a good resource for somebody who wants to do a little more research or reporting on this trend. We're going to see these companies coming together and forming mega alt protein companies, and that is when we're going to take over the world. Let's have a look at oh, actually Jeremy says he's run out, so I'll wait to read the Mr. Charlie's thing. Let's do the ticks, shall we? Alpha-Gal syndrome in Scientific American. Tick bites are driving up deadly meat allergies. Scientists are scrambling to stop it. Alpha-Gal syndrome increasing across the US, driven by Lone Star ticks. Let's go. Tick season is booming, and with it comes fears over a potentially deadly tick-borne allergy to meat. Discovered just under 20 years ago, alpha-gal syndrome is caused by bites from the Lone Star tick in the US, though other ticks can trigger the illness in other parts of the world. At least one person is known to have died because of the disease, but scientists know relatively little about it, including how best to treat it. Now researchers have met for the first ever scientific conference dedicated to alpha-gal to try to tease out some answers. Physician Scott Commins of the University of North Carolina School of Medicine, who helped discover alpha-gal syndrome, spearheaded the organization of the event, which took place on July 7th and 8th. The aim, he says, is to develop a national set of priorities for research, funding, and education as cases continue to rise. Alpha-gal syndrome has been considered a rare disease in the US, but a quick search online suggests it's very much at the fore of the public consciousness. There are scores of alpha-gal support groups on Reddit and Facebook, while some TikToks on the condition have tens of thousands of likes. Yeah, this is a very recent thing, discovered less than 20 years ago, and it's an allergy to red meat and dairy, I believe, brought on by this tick bite. And I put out a video about this last year. I guess it surges in the summertime when the ticks are more active or out. And I put out a video about this last year where it was surging in the US. And since then, it's only gotten more prevalent and spread to other parts of the world as well. It's on quite an up curve. I wonder if we're going to have any numbers or data or graphs in this article. It's on quite an exponential rise. So more and more people are becoming deadly allergic to red meat and dairy. The most popular alpha-gal Facebook group, the Alpha-Gal Kitchen, has 82,000 members. More than 4,000 than there were just 2 weeks ago, says Sharon Forsyth, Executive Director of the Alpha-Gal Alliance and the Alpha-Gal Alliance Action Fund. A 2023 US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention study found that between 2010 and 2022, the number of suspected alpha-gal cases increased each year. An estimated 450,000 people have the disease, according to the CDC, but that may be an underestimate. In a study published on July 2nd, around 1 in 4 people in Arkansas, Kentucky, Missouri, Tennessee, and Virginia tested positive for the antibody associated with alpha-gal syndrome, although not all of them were symptomatic. this is just my read of these states. I expect that all of these are pretty high red meat consuming states. These are all, I think these are all red states, right? And so I think the heat is the main thing. It's in warmer climates first, but it is spreading, and especially sped up by climate change. So it's spreading now to more northern areas, more cold areas, areas where you wouldn't have expected it, you know, a few years ago. These ticks are spreading, and so is alpha-gal syndrome. There's probably a ton of cases in California, but nobody notices because everyone's vegan there anyway. Right? But of course they're going to notice in Kentucky. There's like 2 guys who've got it in Kentucky, and they notice right away. Despite the growing caseload and heightened public awareness since alpha-gal's discovery, researchers don't know a lot about the syndrome. What we do know is that the Lone Star tick and other ticks can carry the alpha-gal molecule, which is naturally present in the tissues of many mammals, but not humans or other primates. A tick bite can inject the molecule straight into the bloodstream, triggering an immune system response. This response produces a certain antibody that causes an allergic reaction, word missing, when the affected person eats red meat or other meat-related products such as dairy or gelatin. Gelatin as well, okay. Oh look, these are all the related stories on alpha-gal. At the 2-day alpha-gal conference, co-hosted by the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, North Carolina's Department of Health and Human Services, and the CDC, speakers and panels discussed everything from tick populations to the syndrome's impact on heart valves to gastrointestinal issues. Yeah, this seems like something you would want to fund if you're the meat industry. Again, right, you really don't want people becoming allergic to red meat on a wide scale if you're like the Cattlemen's Association or the National Pig Producers Association. So I wouldn't be surprised if they can attract some funding to try and do some research into preventing AGS. There's nothing else that would bring a veterinarian, a physician, an entomologist, and an epidemiologist all to the same room with knowledge about the same syndrome, Commons says. In part, the risk of alpha-gal is an ecological problem. Lone Star tick's main diet consists of the blood of white-tailed deer, the population of which has skyrocketed thanks to conservation efforts and the reforesting of the East Coast after the Industrial Revolution. Interesting, okay. Based white-tailed deers. Long live those conservation efforts. Let's get those populations up. Let's get those ticks spreading. We've brought white-tailed deer back from the brink of extinction, says Holly Gaff, a biology professor at Old Dominion University who presented at the conference. When we bring back deer, we bring back their parasites, and then we're surprised when it happens in our own yards. We've created this perfect ecology for the Lone Star ticks to explode, she says. Well, I'll be damned if we don't see like a load of Republicans now wanting to deforest the East Coast. Wipe out the deer, right? This is going to be a conclusion that someone could take from that. The Lone Star tick's range is also expanding. While they were once relatively sequestered to the US southeast, the arachnids have begun to spread west and north, as white-tailed deer have also spread and the climate has warmed, Gaff says. As tick interactions increase, so does public and clinical awareness of the disease. It's absolutely unambiguous that diagnoses are on the rise, alpha-gal syndrome awareness advocate Forsyth says. But alpha-gal syndrome is unpredictable, which can make it hard to identify. In some people, the immune response to alpha-gal looks like an allergic reaction to red meat, yet the symptoms don't happen right away. It can take hours for hallmarks such as hives, nausea, or trouble breathing to manifest. After eating mammalian products, some people with the syndrome experience gastrointestinal problems that can be mistaken for food poisoning or irritable bowel syndrome. Others still can eat red meat with no problems, but if they take medication that contains the alpha-gal molecule, for example, or receive a new heart valve made from a pig or cow, they'll have a reaction. Okay, that's interesting. So if you have alpha-gal syndrome, it may not be obvious because it can take hours for the symptoms to come on. So you might eat red meat and then several hours later have hives, nausea, trouble breathing. You're not necessarily going to attribute that to the red meat if it doesn't happen until hours afterwards, right? So that's one reason to think it's probably underdiagnosed at the moment. There's a prediction, or there's an estimate here that 450,000 people have it across the US. But as it says, it's probably a lot more than that. So, US population is in the ballpark of 300 million. It's like not yet 1%, but it's rapidly increasing. It's going to get there. Lone Star ticks are natural and part of the circle of life. True, Oppenheimer. That's so true. That's so true. Circle of life. That's so true. Right in the middle of the conference, I got a call from someone who has a medical procedure tomorrow, she says. I'm not a doctor, and oh, pardon me, did I miss a... Yeah, I missed a paragraph here. Because the syndrome presents so differently among those affected, Forsyth says she acts as a helpline for people with questions about the syndrome. Right in the middle of the conference, I got a call from someone who has a medical procedure tomorrow, she says. I'm not a doctor and have no medical background, but they have no one to tell, and they've just found out their doctor is going to use heparin, which is derived from pig lungs or intestines. So I have to tell them, here's some papers you can take to your doctor, and then you have to trust them to do a risk-benefit analysis. Yeesh. Okay, I mean, this is going to probably build a case for animal product alternatives in these medical procedures. Right? I mean, I mainly think of this as, and, you know, this article was presenting as, mainly it's an allergy to red meat. Like, if you had this syndrome, you could just avoid eating red meat. That's something that you can do. It's going to make you healthier in general. That's probably going to be a net good thing for you. But impacting on like standard medical procedures, that's probably not going to be a good thing. It is going to provide some impetus for coming up with animal-free alternatives in those procedures, right? I don't know what exactly heparin is or does, but whoever can come up with an alternative for that is going to have an alpha-gal syndrome-proof medical technology that they will find increasingly valuable in the future. Forsyth is also advocating for policy that would formally recognise alpha-gal as a major allergen and requires changes to food and drug labelling. Most pharmaceutical companies, she says, don't clarify whether their products contain alpha-gal. Researchers don't know why some people experience such a range of symptoms, or none at all, or what exactly about the tick saliva causes these different reactions. Commons' team hopes better understanding of the tick's bites and their effect on the body could lead to more human clinical trials for alpha-gal syndrome and perhaps even a vaccine. Uh-oh. We don't need that. I'm anti-vax now. I want to be anti-vax now. For a field that contains so many different silos of research, Gaff says she appreciated the multidisciplinary nature of the conference. As researchers and as patient groups, we have our own worlds, so to bring us together is brilliant. Well, there you go. We don't actually have any numbers in here about the recent rise in alpha-gal syndrome. Let's see if we can find anything about that, hey. Alpha-gal syndrome. 2026 data. Could it be? UNC study finds nearly 1 in 4 adults in high-risk states have alpha-gal antibodies linked to tick-borne meat allergy. Okay. That's a lot. 1 in 4 adults in high-risk states. So the high-risk states are probably going to be those that we just read about: Kentucky, Virginia, Missouri, and Arkansas, and Tennessee. A new study examining blood donor samples from across the US found that nearly 1 in 4 adults in states with the highest rates of alpha-gal syndrome has positive antibodies to the allergen associated with the condition, underscoring the growing public health impact of this tick-borne disease. Alpha-gal, blah, blah, blah. We know about this. Commons Lab tested 3,000 blood donor samples collected between November 2024 and April 2025 from residents of 10 states. Okay, so this is still like more than a year ago. The analysis revealed the estimated prevalence of alpha-gal immunoglobulin antibodies, or proportion of the population sensitized to alpha-gal, was highest in states where Lone Star ticks are well established. The study found significant variation in alpha-gal IgG seroprevalence across the... oh, that's prevalence in the blood, I guess. Across the US, Arkansas had the highest estimated seroprevalence of 31.2%, followed by Missouri at 26%. Across the 5 states with the highest prevalence, combined estimated seroprevalence was 24%, meaning nearly 1 in 4 adults would test positive for alpha-gal antibodies. In contrast, Washington state had the lowest estimated seroprevalence at just 1.1%. Wow, so even the most northwestern state, it says it's starting out in the southeast and then kind of spreading. But even then, 1% of people in the most northwestern state, furthest from the origin, had the antibody. So had likely been affected by AGS. This is way more than I would have thought. Here's that 450,000. AGS was estimated to affect about 450,000 people in the US in 2022. But this study suggests that many more individuals may have been exposed to alpha-gal and developed antibodies without developing the syndrome itself. Okay. Okay. So the presence of the antibodies doesn't necessarily mean that they actually had the reaction. Yeah, I feel like we'd be hearing more about this if 1 in 4 people in these high-risk states were now allergic to meat. But this is a real thing. This tick-borne disease makes you allergic to red meat, dairy, and gelatin, and it's spreading, it's increasing. And scientists don't yet know what to do about it. There's no vaccine, there's not much known about treatments or cures. So we're going to see the rate of actual allergies to red meat and dairy continuing to go up across the US and across the world. Let's see if we've got anything else with more recent data. Oh, this is that study again. Oh yeah, we're getting all the different coverage of that same study, basically. Wow. Yikes. Well, watch this space. What's it going to be when we come to look at it next year? 1 in 3? 1 in 2? This is increasing. Scientists don't really know what to do about it. There's going to be more and more people experiencing alpha-gal disease. This is going to be potentially a huge trend away from red meat. Not good news if you're the meat industry. Not good news. That must mean well over 1% in the ticks range. Yeah, right. That furthest one, Washington, furthest northwest state, had 1% still with the antibodies. So yeah, got to be more than that have been affected, basically. Although interesting that not all of them actually develop the symptoms. But look, welcome back, by the way, Jeremy. I waited for you to read the Mr. Charlie's thing. Let's have a look at this now, shall we? In SF Gate. Familiar looking California burger chain explodes into national expansion. Let's go. It's planning locations in Arizona, Atlanta, and beyond. It's really no wonder that when Mr. Charlie's opened its first location in Los Angeles in 2022, it became something of a social media sensation. For one, there are striking red and yellow branding similarities to McDonald's. Allegedly, please. though in this case the yellow isn't a golden arch, it's an upside-down frown and two crossed-out eyes. The company also leaves no space between Mr. and Charlie's in its logo, leaving plenty of folks to incorrectly call it McCharlie's, like McDonald's instead. Secondly, the entirely plant-based menu offers cheekily named dishes like Not a Cheeseburger, made with Impossible meat, and Frowny Fries, which can be ordered together as combos and come in bright red cardboard packaging for children, including the arched handle. They are surely cruising for a bruising on the McDonald's lawsuit, right? Frowny Fries, is that good? Is that good branding? I don't know. I mean, they're doing well, so who am I to say? In early 2022, music superstar Lizzo reviewed the chain's Frowny meal on TikTok and garnered more than 4 million views. Soon, hashtag vegan McDonald's was all over social media. Fast forward 4 years, and LA founded Mr. Charlie's has a second location in the City of Angels, as well as outposts in San Diego, San Francisco, and Sydney. But that's just the tip of the Mr. Fluffhead soft cone soft serve cone. Along with a few new celebrity heavyweights now attached to the brand, Mr. Charlie's has its sights set on national meat-free, dairy-free domination, joining other Southern California brands like Dave's Hot Chicken and Mike's Red Tacos as brands that are jumping from California into the national spotlight with massive multi-state expansion deals. Well, there you go. That does look an awful lot like McDonald's, doesn't it? They've done this deliberately with all the packaging and everything, like even the burger toppings. I totally believe this is a McDonald's burger. Damn, that looks pretty good, actually. Thanks to investment from Access Capital Group, Mr. Charlie's now has 25 locations sold nationwide, with 18 stores planned for Arizona alone. According to Adam Wilkes, president of Mr. Charlie's, the brand is planning a flagship in the Hillcrest neighborhood of San Diego, as well as an Austin, Texas outpost. It's also looking at other markets as far away as Atlanta. Continued Southern California expansion within LA, San Diego, and Orange County, plus international locations, remains part of the larger plan too. This is really another data point to say that the death of plant-based has been much exaggerated. Well, we're seeing international expansion from this vegan burger chain. I think there's more to come from the plant-based market. You know, I think we're really going to see an increase next year. I'm repeating that. Put a pin in it. We'll see it. We're really excited about continued international growth opportunities being negotiated. We're being very strategic with expansion and focusing on markets where the brand culture, community engagement, and demand for better fast food alternatives align with what Mr. Charlie's represents, Wilkes told SF Gate via email. When asked why the timing is right for expansion, Wilkes said, "We believe consumers are actively looking for something different from traditional fast food, not just from a food standpoint, but from a brand and culture standpoint as well. Mr. Charlie's has built a strong identity that combines great tasting plant-based food, a disruptive and recognizable brand, and a mission-driven message around second chances and community involvement." That's an interesting message. Second chances and community involvement. Not really what I would have guessed to be like the mission message. But okay, maybe they'll say more about that. And then we've got Travis Barker for some reason. Well, he's vegan, hey, so maybe he's one of the brand ambassadors. In addition to his aggressive expansion plans, the brand has announced that Blink-182 drummer and longtime plant-based living advocate Travis Barker has joined Mr. Charlie's as an equity partner and brand ambassador. Boxing legend Mike Tyson was brought on as an investor in 2024. Okay, pretty cool, pretty cool. Mr. Charlie's isn't just another food concept, it's a movement, Barker said in a news release. What they're building across food, culture, and community resonates with me. I'm excited to help take it to the next level. As Mr. Charlie's goes on its national tear, time will tell if all the small things line up for the quickly growing brand. Very good, very good. I almost missed that Blink-182 reference. Good. Awesome. Well, you know, vegan McDonald's going nationwide and going international, that's got to be a good thing. A lot of good stuff comes out of California, hey. A lot of people will be slow to admit that, but a lot of good stuff comes out of California. A lot of good food brands, even, like restaurant brands. It's very good in the sense it's similar to McDonald's. I went to the San Francisco one once. I mean, I love that. I love that. I'm like a bit of a Philistine when it comes to food in general. But I do love, that's why I love the vegan fast food stuff so much. Had 2 good vegan sausage rolls earlier. Delightfully from like a little independent corner shop near my house, which I wasn't expecting to find them there. But I love the McPlant that we have here in the UK. I love the plant-based Whopper. Plant-based Subways, they used to be good. They used to be good when they had the meatballs, when they had the chicken alternative. They didn't seem to have anything vegan last time I went there. They meant to have this vegan pulled pork. It was nowhere. So I don't know. But there you go. There's some more good news. Mr. Charlie's, the vegan McDonald's, is expanding nationwide and internationally, and has brought on Travis Barker as an investment. So good for him. And thank you, Jeremy, for sharing that story. I appreciate that. Front window in SF looks like this. Stop staring at me like I'm some piece of meat. Nice. I always like it when these meat alternative brands actually do bring up the animals. I totally get it why a lot of them don't want to, but I always have a lot of respect for them when they do. Unless you read this could be, you might not think this is vegan, hey. But that's pretty cool, I like that a lot. Could a plant-based diet make you more attractive? We already know that vegans are more intelligent. We already know that vegans live longer. But now a new study has found that eating fewer animal products and more plants can also make you more attractive, can change how you look, smell, and feel. I suppose that means feel internally, not like change the texture of your skin, right? That would make more sense. Let's have a look. Let's have a look. Could adopting a plant-based or plant-rich diet make you more attractive? A new narrative review has found that eating less meat and more plants can change how you look, smell, and feel, and benefit your overall health. The narrative review was conducted by David Goldman, best known for his work as the chief science advisor on The Game Changers, and Dr. Matthew Nagra, a plant-based physician, and was published in Recent Progress in Nutrition. Nice. We love Dr. Matthew Nagra, friend of the channel. We had him on to review and debunk Frederick Leroy on Ty Beale's show. And he has done a lot of work with this David Goldman guy. They've got a lot of papers together. Those two are machines, actually, I have to say. Like, this is, I guess, their latest study, but maybe not even if this article's a week old. Like, those guys publish. Those guys put out a lot of papers. They're I don't know how they do it. They're putting out a lot. As summarized by the Physicians Committee of Responsible Medicine, the new narrative review highlighted research showing how eating less meat can improve sweat odor, carotenoids in fruit and vegetables can benefit skin color, and complex carbohydrates can slow the signs of aging, while a healthy body weight, previously linked to plant-based foods, is correlated with greater perceived attractiveness. Writing on Instagram, Nagra noted that attractiveness is inherently subjective and varies on an individual basis. The findings of the reviewed study pertain to perceived attractiveness among the included populations. All right, so there you go. Your sweat's going to smell less, your skin's going to be a better color, and you'll have slower aging and be less likely to be overweight. More attractive vegans? Yes, please. Health, the environment, and animal welfare are the reasons most commonly cited by people who already follow plant-based diets and those who are interested in eating less meat in the future. However, the desire to improve one's attractiveness could potentially prove a significant motivator for people to eat more plants. In the narrative review, Goldman and Nagra wrote, traditional public health messaging prioritizes disease prevention, whereas individual motivations for dietary change frequently focus on appearance and social outcomes. Yeah, that's very true. This is... I would not be at all surprised if a lot of people, especially a lot of young people, are more motivated by the idea that they'll be better looking than they are by the idea they'll be less likely to get heart disease and cancer. Like, especially when you're young, that kind of stuff just seems so distant. So if you say, you know, you can cut your risk of cancer by 20% or whatever it is, you just don't think you're going to get cancer anyway when you're young, right? You just kind of think that doesn't apply to me. But if you can say it's going to make you smell less and make your skin look better, well, now those people are interested. They added, appearance-based feedback has been hypothesized to promote dietary behavior change by delivering prompt and personally relevant reinforcement, though this pathway requires further empirical investigation. Presenting dietary recommendations in terms of visible outcomes may complement traditional health messaging by aligning individual motivations with public health objectives. Hell yeah. Okay, they haven't said as much as I would have liked about this study. Let's have a look. Is this going to be the paper or just the journal? Okay, here it is. Traditional public health messaging prioritizes disease prevention, whereas individual motivations for dietary change frequently focus on appearance and social outcomes. Physical attractiveness functions as a multimodal signal, combining facial appearance, body odor, and body composition. Evolutionary models posit that such cues communicate fitness-relevant information regarding health status. This narrative review integrates empirical evidence linking plant-forward dietary patterns to facial attractiveness, body odor quality, and adiposity. This is how fat you are, basically. It examines the mechanisms underlying these associations and their implications for health promotion strategies. Literature searchers identify peer-reviewed articles published between 2000 and 2025 that investigated relationships between dietary patterns and appearance-related outcomes, including facial attractiveness. They didn't mention facial attractiveness in the plant-based news article either. Skin coloration, body odor, and body composition in adult populations. Evidence from experimental, observational, and cross-cultural research indicates that diet influences attractiveness through multiple pathways. Increased intake of carotenoid-rich fruits and vegetables enhances facial skin coloration and perceived health within weeks. Glycemic load impacts attractiveness through mechanisms such as perceived age and sexual dimorphism. That means you'll be appear more masculine for men and appear more feminine for women. Dietary composition affects body odor pleasantness by altering sweat chemistry and microbial metabolism. Plant-based dietary patterns support achieving adiposity levels associated with peak attractiveness. Hell yes. All right. So this is, these are the benefits listed. So, okay, this is the skin color thing, was the facial attractiveness. Facial skin coloration can be impacted by having more fruits and vegetables within weeks. Glycemic load, mechanisms such as perceived age and sexual dimorphism. And then also sweat odor pleasantness. And so you'll be less fat, less smelly, and have a more attractive face on a plant-based diet. Or to put it another way, meat eaters are fat, smelly, and ugly. relative to vegans, right? That is I might have to share this. I might have to share this on LinkedIn. Dr. Nagra is far too polite to put it in the terms that I've just put it in. But basically, this is the summary of the findings here. Meat eaters are fat, smelly, and ugly. Many people are saying this. This fits with my current model of the world. These modalities operate on distinct temporal scales and provide partially independent information consistent with multiple message models of sexual signaling. Diet is a modifiable determinant of socially salient appearance cues. Appearance-based feedback has been hypothesized to promote dietary behavior change by delivering prompt and personally relevant reinforcement, though this pathway requires further empirical evaluation. So the thing that they're saying requires further empirical evaluation, by the way, is just how effective this is as a message for encouraging dietary change. So the actual mechanisms linking a more plant-based diet to being more attractive in terms of facial attractiveness, skin coloration, body odor, body composition, those are not being contested here. They're not saying this needs more research. They're just talking about how effective this is as a message, basically. Presenting dietary recommendations in terms of visible outcomes may complement traditional health messaging by aligning individual motivations with public health objectives. I love this. I love this. What a great idea. And yeah, makes sense. Look, they've got this paper then is going to go into great detail about just how and why meat eaters are fat, smelly, and ugly. Summary of key evidence linking plant-forward dietary patterns to attractiveness outcomes. Rated attractive. Strong preference for carotenoid over melanin coloration. Carotenoid faces selected in 75.9% of trials. Wow, okay, so this is... Okay, so it's actually like behavioral research where they're having people choose like who's more attractive in choice experiments and that kind of thing. And we're seeing empirical evidence that vegans are better looking. Hey, Andrew. Don't worry, I was talking about meat eaters. New evidence finds that vegans are more attractive. And the meat eaters, in comparison, are fat, smelly, and ugly. Of course, these authors have put it in much more polite and technical terms, being that plant-forward diets can be beneficial to facial attractiveness, skin coloration, body odor, and body composition. But that is basically what they're saying. Meat eaters are fat, smelly, and ugly. That is the conclusion here. I feel like this plant-based news article about it could have gone harder, honestly. This is kind of a bit polite all round. I think we can probably make a little bit more of a compelling statement about this. Converging evidence from experimental, observational, and cross-cultural research demonstrates that human attractiveness serves as a diet-sensitive, multimodal signal that integrates facial appearance, body odor, and body composition. More vegans winning, basically. Hell yeah. I love this. Fantastic. If we needed any evidence that vegans are more attractive, here it is. I'm going to put the link to this in chat. And I think I'm probably going to have to share this as well. Got an article here about insect protein. I might save that for next time. Yeah, this is great. You know, normally when I have these kind of moments like I'm having now where I think, should I post this? Is this a bit too rogue? Will this be taken well? It's rare that I regret posting it. In fact, usually those posts are the ones that do the best. So I think I'm probably going to post this. What does it come up as when I put the link in a LinkedIn post? This doesn't look that compelling, does it? Is this what I want to be doing? Some post, yeah. Is this a good idea? Let's poll it. Let's poll it in chat. Should I post this? Two yeses. Why am I not surprised? This is the key passage that I want, I think, isn't it? Evidence from experimental, observational, and cross-cultural research indicates that diet influences attractiveness through multiple pathways. Increased intake of carotenoid-rich fruits and vegetables enhances facial skin coloration and perceived health within weeks. Glycemic load impacts attractiveness through mechanisms such as perceived age and sexual dimorphism. You know, this is the only one of these that I'm not that like familiar with what's going on here, or it doesn't make it that explicit in the abstract at least. Wow, we got to know. I'm kind of surprised by that. Is it a good idea? Maybe not. Do I want you to post it anyway? Yes. Hell no, Jeremy. Are you really 50? I can only see your tiny little YouTube picture, but I would not have guessed that at all. You must have a low glycemic load. Meat is more. Alright, let's do it. I think this is going to go well, personally. Should I tag? I'll tag the authors as well, hey? I don't have this guy on LinkedIn. I don't know which one he is. So I guess I'm not going to tap David Goldman. Unless I can add him real quick or find him. Well, you know what? I won't tag them. I'll send this to Matthew Negra. We got 75% yes. It's posted. No regrets. I'm no regrets right now. Good for them. Nice study. I feel the aggressive from the coverage from Plant-Based News could have been a bit more aggressive on this one, but I've made up for it on LinkedIn. Let's see how this post does. Here, I'm going to link it in chat in case you want to give it some love. Oh, it's too long. I can delete some of this. Here we go. There you go, I linked the post in chat. I'm sure this will cause some controversy and some pushback. We'll see. Oh, look, this is the story we read yesterday from Green Queen. Right. I think I'm going to leave it there, guys. We're at about 2 hours. Not bad shift today. We read about Japan's new $6 billion investment in new foods, including animal product alternatives. We read about the continued spread of alpha-gal syndrome, making more and more people allergic to red meat and dairy across the US and across the world. We read about Mr. Charlie's, the vegan McDonald's, expanding throughout the US and internationally. And, of course, we read about the new evidence, if it was needed, that vegans are more attractive. So pretty good stream. Pretty good stream. And you know what? Previously I was in the habit of uploading stream segments as videos. I'm now thinking that might be giving YouTube kind of mixed signals about the kind of videos that I post. So I'm not sure exactly what to do about that, because there is some good content on stream that I would still like to post. But I'm inclined to have the videos on my main channel be like produced videos as opposed to stream clips. So I'm not exactly sure what to do about that. I've considered making another channel for stream clips. But I don't know if that's really necessary or warranted or would do well. We'll see. I guess that's for me to work out. But for now, the stream content that you're seeing is stream exclusive. So, you know, you guys were here and saw it first. Is this going to be a pic of you, JG? Maybe I won't bring it up on stream, I guess. Unless you're extremely attractive, in which case I will. Well, there you go. That was quickly solved. No, you do not look 50, JG. I would have guessed you're about my age, honestly. Good for you, brother. That is plant-based attractiveness doing the work. Look at that skin. You must have been eating a lot of carotenoid-rich fruits and vegetables, my friend. Make them into shorts that are a bit more separate. Yeah, that's not a bad idea, Oppenheimer. Vertical clips, true. Sabi Coops, yeah. I've got kind of the phone like proportions now on my cam as well. Damn, there you go, mate. Not looking bad at all. Not looking bad at all. Fair play to you. No, you don't look 50. That's true. That's true. Keep pushing back those years. That's are you really 50? Jesus. Right. Thank you so much for watching, you guys. I appreciate you as always. And yeah, maybe I'll clip some of this up as shorts. Can you put chat above your camera? Yeah, I might do that, Oppenheimer. It is a bit wasted space at the moment, isn't it? That might encourage more people to chat. But then my worry is I'll be kind of beholden to what comes up in the chat, and it'll be part of the video as well. Sometimes that can go badly. I don't know though. You all are pretty well behaved. All right. I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next stream. Take care, everyone. Be well. Cheers.